Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the MHA panel discussion series. Today, we are honored to have Bonnie Cook, our Executive Director at Mental Health America of Greater Dallas, and her husband, Wes. So today's topic is going to be about living at home during this pandemic for people who may have a mental health condition, and what's it like for your partner being at home with all these different things going on. How do we manage mental health during this time with our loved ones? So jumping right into it, first off, Wes, what's been your experience so far in this pandemic living with someone who has anxiety and depression?
Well, um, Bonnie and I have been married almost 25 years, so this is nothing new. So we're used to the patterns, et cetera. It's just intensified because you're in the house, the same four walls together all the time. And the pandemic has, in my view, raised some of Bonnie's anxiety about work, about the world, et cetera, but not in extreme. She's been very careful to manage and watch those things. So she constantly takes her own pulse as well. So together we talk about these things. We sort of check in and make sure. I serve as a sounding board for her. And at times, you just need to be in different parts of the house. Let each person be their own. So we've got a big enough space that we can separate and do our work and decompress and those kind of things.
Bonnie, do you have any additions to that? What's it like for you being stuck at home?
Well, he kind of makes it sound sort of like, I can be close to perfect when it comes to dealing with this, but I don't see it that way. I have seen more, I don't want to say going in circles, but I think I have moments that, like he says, when I worry about the job and I worry about all of you, and then I start watching the TV, and I can't, I can't turn the TV off, or I can't quit reading an article. And yeah, I do take my own pulse, but a lot of times I look at Wes to see if my taking of my pulse is the correct response.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. Soon after the pandemic started, I was staying in the house since I've got asthma, and just the anxiety, it was just too much. And so Wes said, well, why don't we get out, go get a cheeseburger, something like that. And I said, okay. He said, you hadn't been out in 2 weeks, go out. Well, we went out and there was nobody out. And I told Wes it was like it was the apocalypse, and it freaked me out. So the going out made it worse for me when he thought the going out was going to make it better. And so I have found anytime I have to run to the store to pick up a prescription or anything like that, then I am not in a good place when I get back home.
Yeah.
It's happened every single time. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important then to know how we cope with these feelings, and if we're experiencing them, what can we do to kind of bring ourselves down? So, Bonnie, what are your good coping things to deal with your anxiety and depression when faced with all these different stressors?
I quilt a lot. I think most people know that. I do try and make a list of what I'm going to accomplish in a given day. Then when I don't get it accomplished, or give myself a little leeway, I'm not real good at being a positive person and expressing gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that it's helping me if I even find just a little something that makes me happy. So be it, I see a kid outside playing, or somebody, birthday party drive by, and looking for at least one thing or two things to be a little grateful for in the day. Doing a lot more, making sure that I'm, reading my journals or reading my, tips and the stuff that we at MHA turn around and give to people to deal with it. Make sure I'm using those tools just like everybody else is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who has an anxiety disorder myself, I know that it definitely affects my family when I'm home with them. So Wes, I'm sure that it does affect you. What do you do to kind of cope with everything that's going on, your personal things, to kind of bring yourself back down from when things kind of get out of hand?
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that these things with Bonnie come in waves. It's not like a constant level. Um, I've seen Bonnie where depression and anxiety at times really sort of um, grab her in a way that really does harm to her. And I haven't seen that in this time, but I have seen the ups and the downs and those kinds of things. And part of, I think, the struggle of being someone who doesn't deal with depression, anxiety in any kind of chronic fashion, being that person in the household is trying to figure out the tension of being a caregiver and a helper and supporter and not becoming codependent. Yeah. How do you be supportive in those times, but also recognize I can't fix this for Bonnie. I can be a sounding board at times when she needs it. I obviously made the wrong decision about her going outside, so she threw me under the bus with that story. But actually, I've been thinking about where do you push, where do you pull, when do you back away, and really when do you just go to another room and let them deal with their stuff. Knowing we were going to do this interview, I did think about the difference between us having been married for 25 years and imagine a couple where the depression or anxiety or other forms of mental illness is fairly new and suddenly you're trapped inside. And I think that would be a much harder situation than we've experienced. But I do have to find things just to do on my own. So I throw myself into my own work and that's hard enough to do at home, to keep motivated to do your work when you're not in your office every day and I'm not seeing my students every day and those kinds of things. So just, finding ways to have boundaries and be supportive at the same time, but not throwing your whole into the other person's needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, go ahead.
No, I just thought those were really great points, especially if they're coming in waves like this isn't going to last forever. So.
And I think too, when we were first dealing with this and a newer couple, it used to just gripe me that, Wes would say, well, just do this, or, well, why don't you do this? And it's like, you have no clue, man, what I am going through at this moment. You don't have an inkling of what this is like. And almost at times for me, resentful that Wes could turn around and go to another room and focus on his work while I'm, or, at the time, not even able to get out of the bed. So I do think about when we were first married and first trying to navigate our new life and living together and the stress of marriage on top of how then we turned around and made a marriage work while you're sitting there going, so yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that used to bother you the most when you were down was when I would laugh at something on TV.
Yeah.
How can you laugh and all? And just, finding, I think for both, finding room just to let you be where you are emotionally. It's hard, but it's important. And if you add kids to the mix or siblings, or because, as you mentioned, Cole, it's not just spouses with each other or partners with each other right now and dealing with possible mental illness. It can be a whole family matrix. And I really have learned both through Bonnie's work and Bonnie's own dealing with her own mental health issues. The mental illness is a family dynamic. It really involves everyone. And but you got to figure your own way of dealing with it so that you stay healthy as well.
Absolutely. And I think this transitions really well into the big question I really want to hit on is, Wes, you said you were able to kind of see these signs popping up of anxiety and depression. You were able to be a sounding board. But could you walk us through how you communicate with Bonnie when she's experiencing these mental health concerns, and how do you bring that to I guess, the forefront of the conversation, just to make it aware at the time.
Tread carefully, man.
Well, I do think it's different 25 years into the marriage versus 5 years, as Bonnie was saying. So I probably, when we were younger, I would definitely try and fix things, make it all better. And now I've just given up on that, But that doesn't mean that I don't recognize when something's coming. An episode might be coming before Bonnie notices it. And I will at times point out, because as some of your viewers will know, medicines for psychiatric conditions don't stay the same. They've got to be adjusted. And at times I'll notice when it feels like Bonnie's medicine's off. It's not because she's not taking it or something. It's just not clicking the same way. And I can signal that. So how her attention span flutters away or something, or when she seems to be anxious about things today that wouldn't have bothered her at all yesterday. When she gets more quiet, when she snaps, things like that. And I mean, we all do that. I mean, those aren't just signs of, a chronic mental illness, but just sort of at times deciding when. And I probably do it a lot less than Bonnie thinks I do. Bonnie probably thinks I point out things all the time.
I do. I do.
But from my side, I'm very reserved of when I try to name things or not.
And when he says, I think your medicine might be off, and he says it in the nicest tone and the most caring, loving, it just irritates the hell out of me that it's like, well, how does he know it and I don't? And then sure enough, give it another time, and 8 out of 10 times he's right. He saw it before I did. So I gave you that one, man. Thank you.
I think it's symbolic that we're in different rooms doing this right now on 2 different screens.
Like I said, I didn't want to do it in the same room.
Yeah, Wes, I think that's for your personal safety there.
I'm closer to the back door to get out after this conversation.
That's all right.
Yeah, but back to it. I do think it's important to also communicate how you communicate with the other person. Like, know what words are okay, know how to come about this in the correct and I guess the most non-threatening manner. So if in my past I've tried to communicate about bipolar disorder, and the person I was communicating with had a very strong association with the word manic. And so if you said that word, it would just make things worse and worse and worse. So finding the right ways to go about it with that person you're living with is very important, and communicating about that, not just when episodes are happening, but when things are normal and you just want to get a more solid foundation. I think that's really important. Okay, so Bonnie, do you have any last tips for couples stuck at home with mental health conditions right now?
I think you need to have a lot of flexibility. I think you need to have a lot of patience. And I think you need to realize that it's not, this is happening to me, it's happening to us, would be my soundest advice at the moment.
Yeah. Wes, same to you. Any last tips?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with what you said. I mean, even though we're talking about opening parts of the state, different business, I think this is going to be a situation where if we're not cramped at home the whole time, we're still going to be isolated a lot for a while. So trying to take a breath, if you're the person on my side, I would take a breath and just, one day at a time, this will come, this will go. It's going to be a long marathon of a run here for a while. And just sort of just giving yourself grace too. You can walk around on eggshells so much that your shins hurt. So you've got to find ways to give the other person space to deal as they need to, be supportive, but then find ways to whether it's getting out in the yard or going for a walk or whatever, finding ways to take care of yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on behalf of all of us that suffer with mental illness and our families, we thank you all for your support and your encouragement. And I am the luckiest woman in the world to have this man as a husband. And so for the caregivers that think maybe we're not as appreciative as we ought to be, I will tell you that we might not say it all the time, but you are at times our lifeline. And I thank you all, and I thank you, Wes, for that.
Okay.
I'll say the same thing. I've never struggled with mental illness and all. And Bonnie's bravery, even in the bad times, always really amazes me. Even when we're fighting over in these cause fights or something, you know, I mean, she really, it's a constant struggle that she's on top of. And I really appreciate that. And she's a role model, I think, in that sense.
Oh.
Well, thank y'all both so much for being here. I think y'all are amazing role models for anyone listening, anyone with mental health conditions or their families. I hope anyone listening takes this to heart. Give love to everyone in their life. But thank y'all so much for joining us. And please subscribe, write us a comment, follow us on Facebook. And we will see you soon for our next episode. Thank you so much.
Bye.